Not so long ago, a 150cc motorcycle meant one thing only: sports bike. But we've changed so much. Today, a 150cc motorcycle gets the enthusiast barely warmed up, and an office goer with many miles under his belt considers one of these as a great option to commute on. The TVS Apache RTR 164V is the current leader of this very demanding segment, and now it's finally time for it to meet the updated Suzuki Gixxer. So far, the TVS Apache has been the best in its class, and with good reason. It's a 159cc, 4-valve equipped, 16.5 PS motorcycle that's been bred from TVS's decades of racetrack experience. But the Gixxer makes no such claims. It thrilled us when it was launched a few years ago, and now in 2019, it's got even more to offer: an LED headlight, heavily revised bodywork, and an equipment list that's designed to win spec comparisons. But we don't ride bikes on paper, do we? So we'll test these bikes out in the real world to find out which is the better blend of practicality and personality. In the city, where space is at a premium and time is a luxury, you will appreciate both the Apache and the Gixxer for their compactness and their hunger for speed. But while they are meant for the same purpose, their character couldn't be any more dissimilar. The Apache is a spirited motorcycle at city speeds, but it's the Gixxer that's more responsive. In reality, the Apache is more powerful and is quicker, obviously, but in terms of involvement and sensations, it's the Gixxer that has the stronger character. Energetic it may be, but the Gixxer is far from perfect. The engine, for one, sounds a bit gruff at most revs, and gear shifts are, as before, a fair bit notchy. In stark contrast, the Apache's gearbox is butter smooth, and TVS has outdone itself with the refinement levels it has achieved with this motor. And we're not even talking about the fuel-injected variant here, mind you. It also sounds throatier and instantly identifiable as an RTR, although the overall mellow nature of the bike, along with that particularly effortless throttle, makes it seem somewhat uninvolving unless you ride it very hard. While the Gixxer will form an instant connect with you, especially if you're an enthusiast, when it comes to the numbers game, it's actually the Apache that's not only quicker, but also more fuel efficient, despite being 5 kilos heavier. What's amazing is how versatile both of these motors are. Not only can they easily outpace traffic, but they also offer excellent tractability, which means in the city, you rarely ever have to downshift below 3rd gear. So, now we know which of these two motorcycles is the faster one to get to college on. But hang on, what exactly is your hurry to get to college when you're going to end up bunking lectures anyway? Instead, why don't we focus on which of these is more fun while you're getting there? If you agree with that thought, then the good news is both the Apache and the Gixxer are exceptionally nimble on city streets. The Apache has a longer wheelbase and is marginally heavier, so it doesn't feel as flickable as the Gixxer, but there is a maturity to it that a lot of you will appreciate. The Gixxer, on the other hand, feels telepathic in its responses, and given its superior cycle parts, be it the 41mm telescopic fork or the wider radial tires, it's not only more agile, but also very poised. What's also very helpful is the Gixxer's smaller turning radius, which can be crucial in crawling traffic. The Gixxer sets you up for stress-free fun, and that's primarily because of the way it seats you. You sit nicely in this motorcycle, the handlebar almost falls naturally into your hands, and that chassis, God, it's a gem. Even if you're on the taller side, say 6 feet or thereabouts, you will find the Gixxer generously proportioned, but that's not something we can say about the Apache. On this bike, regardless of whether you're 6 feet tall or even below, you always get the feeling that you're sitting on the motorcycle rather than in it. But I must say, this seat, while it's not as stylish as that split seat unit, is definitely the more comfortable place to spend long hours in. Although this sporty handlebar, which is a bit flat in its design, can get a little taxing, especially if you have a long commute or if your commute has a lot of bad roads. But surely, with bikes as fun as these, you aren't going to restrict yourself to the city, are you? But do these bikes have any business treading onto the highway? You'll be surprised. Not only are both of these bikes reasonably fast, They are also quite at ease out on the open road. At 80 kmph, both the Gixxer and the Apache settle at the 6000 rpm mark in 5th gear, and at 100, the Gixxer nudges 7000 rpm, while it takes 8000 rpm for the Apache to do the same. It's on the highway that the Apache doesn't come across as overly polished, because past 7000 rpm, you do feel mild vibrations at the handlebar and foot pegs. The Gixxer does emit a milder buzz too, but only at the foot pegs. It's not surprising that the Apache is more tractable on the highway, and that's not just because it's got the extra punch, but because that motor with its 4 valves and the oil cooler is quite advanced. This also means that when you want to overtake, the Apache is almost effortless and you almost always never need to downshift. On the Gixxer, which is also a peppy motorcycle, dropping a gear, unfortunately, is inevitable. And for when the highway leads you into a set of exciting twisties, you'll still be in for a good time. The Apache's racetrack origins are instantly evident in how clinical it feels around corners, although the soft suspension, which is an asset on bumpy roads, does slightly eat into its agility. The Gixxer doesn't feel like it was built by people in lab coats, but it's delightfully precise and also very stable, although its stiffer suspension makes mid-corner bumps an unsettling affair. It is, however, the one with the better brakes in terms of both bite and progression, and so it's the Gixxer you must have if corner carving on real roads is the best part of your daily commute. And now for the tricky bit. Which of these two offers you more value for your money? Given that these bikes are priced alike, roughly about ₹1,00,000 on paper, the Gixxer is definitely stronger. It gets an LED headlight, a fatter fork, a split seat, radial tires, better brakes, and even the instrument console is better. Unlike on the RTR, the Gixxer's console gets a gear position indicator, which, as I'm sure you'll agree, is far more important than a lap timer, right? Not everything on the Gixxer's equipment list is impeccable though. Firstly, you have this fat telescopic fork, which definitely looks beefy, but does very little to make the ride quality pliant. And then you have this, the LED headlight. Definitely a great feature to have on paper, but in reality, the performance is as good as it being non-existent. And that brings us to the moment of truth. Which of these bikes is best suited to the real world? The Apache is hands down the better machine. I say this also with a sense of pride and patriotism, because not long ago, TVS and Suzuki were partners, and it can be said that TVS learned a lot about making motorcycles from Suzuki. And now, to be able to say that TVS has made the better machine as opposed to the one from a manufacturer which is, among other things, made the fastest production motorcycle in the world, now that's quite something, isn't it? Okay, let me not get carried away. The truth is, if you are young or young at heart, the Gixxer will appeal to you immensely despite a lot of its imperfections. But if you are someone who thinks more from the head than from the heart, and for absolute bang for the buck, the Apache is still the best in its class.